back to Gene Therapy, A Whole New World, the segment where we unpack the promise and the realities of gene therapy for hemophilia. I'm Hannah, and today we are zooming out for the global perspective. So if you've been following along, you'll recognize today's guest, Dr. Hank Greely, bioethics professor at Stanford, and Simon Fletcher, a nurse and PhD candidate at Oxford. You've heard from both before as we've explored the emotional impact, ethics, and future of gene therapy. But before we dive in, here is a quick word from our sponsor. It's a Whole New World Gene Therapy segment brought to you by CSL Behring and their Hemophilia B gene therapy treatment. To learn more about gene therapy, hear patient stories, and view additional support resources, visit beyondhemb.com or download B Support wherever you get your apps for more information and to manage your treatment journey. Gene therapy, as we've been exploring, really is something different. It's a one-time treatment with the potential for lifelong benefits. But here's the catch. Access isn't just about science. It's also about systems. And depending on where you live, that system can look very different. So just to put it in perspective, over 80% of people with hemophilia worldwide still do not have regular access to factor replacement therapy. 80%. That's from the World Federation of Hemophilia's 2023 global survey. So when we talk about global access, we're really talking about a wide range of lived experiences and a whole set of different challenges. So later in the episode, we're going to hear from Simon, a nurse who works closely with families in the UK, navigating that emotional side of gene therapy. But first, we're going to circle back to something Dr. Hank Greely said earlier in this series, a line that really stuck with us and well, it feels especially relevant as we look at the bigger picture.
So the first two words of any answer I ever should give to anything should always be, it depends, because we've learned a variety of different lessons, and not all gene therapy contexts are the same.
It depends. That's the honest answer to almost any question about gene therapy I am discovering, because the context matters, and no two situations or areas, in this case, are exactly the same.
So one lesson we have learned is FDA and the EMA in Europe are willing to approve gene therapies in a rigorous but ultimately, I think, reasonable way. Some of the diseases are so small that if FDA held to its normal standards for the size of clinical trials, it would be impossible. There aren't enough people in the world with the condition to be able to mount a full phase 3 trial by the standards of most of FDA's work. So I think FDA has been flexible.
But flexible? Well, that doesn't always mean fast. And for patients and families, slow approvals or no access at all, that can feel like an added burden on top of everything else. Though we have seen some real milestones take place, like the FDA approval of a gene therapy for hemophilia B here in the United States that is showing amazing promise. Well, that journey isn't the same everywhere.
I am sure that for those in the disease organization community, it has been frustratingly slow because you've got a loved one with a disease, and anything that slows it down is frustratingly slow. I am sure that sometimes it was slower than it needed to be. I actually think that sometimes it's been faster than it should have been.
One way that some countries are trying to speed up access while still keeping high standards is through harmonization. That's where nations agree to recognize each other's clinical trial data instead of starting from scratch. It's all about finding ways to get these breakthroughs to more people faster without compromising the safety.
Harmonization is a good thing. And biopharma has a whole bunch of international agreements for harmonization. So pretty much all of Europe, Canada, the US, China, Japan, Taiwan, variety of countries all accept clinical trials done in each other. they don't necessarily say you approved it, so we will just blanket approve it, but they they respect each other's processes in part because they've agreed on certain things that are necessary in order to make a convincing case.
So harmonization is progress, but the reality is 75% of the global population lives in places that aren't part of these agreements, like much of Africa, Southeast Asia, and even Latin America. And that's from the World Health Organization's 2023 Global Health Estimates. And even in wealthier countries, access isn't always a given. In the US, gene therapy for hemophilia is FDA approved. However, even as early as 2024, many insurance plans still haven't covered it. So this isn't just about borders, it's about infrastructure, policy, and resources.
There are an awful lot of people who are really poor and live in really poor countries that don't have good healthcare facilities, and how are you going to take care of them? And the largest country in the world is now India. It's got 1.4 million people. For about 300 million of those people, which is about the size of the U.S., they're not dirt poor, and they have access to medicine. They're not as well off as Americans, although they're billionaires too. But the other billion live in villages and are dirt poor and are lucky to see doctors. That's going to be. It is already the case that health is grossly unfairly distributed. Healthcare is grossly unfairly distributed across the world. I don't think gene therapy is going to be an exception to that unless or until somehow it becomes magically easy, which would be nice, and people are working on that, but we're not there yet.
One idea some experts are exploring is platform approvals. That's where regulators would approve of a method as a whole instead of starting from scratch every time for each disease. It's a bold idea. It could cut years of work and millions of dollars out of the development pipeline, but also comes with questions, like how to ensure safety without losing scrutiny.
I do like there are folks who are trying to convince FDA to approve a gene therapy platform. So approve an approach to gene therapy, and then without requiring you to prove that the particular disease, the particular genetic change you're making helps a particular disease. That makes me a little bit nervous, but it also has, I think, some real potential, because at least you can avoid some basic questions if everybody agrees, yes, using this kind of viral vector with this kind of CRISPR mechanism, or base editing or prime editing, or whichever the 1,000 versions of gene editing people are coming up with now, as a general matter, works. That could save lots of millions of dollars and lots of months and years of work. We're not there yet, but people, including people at the FDA, have been investigating that. That would be good.
So let's shift gears to the human side of all of this, because access isn't just about treatment. It's also about how prepared somebody feels, the support they have, and what it means to them as a person. In one European study, nearly 60% of people considering gene therapy said they felt emotionally unprepared for the experience. And that's from the 2022 study by the European Association for Hemophilia and Allied Disorders. It's why organizations like WFH and the EAHAD are stepping up, training providers, opening space for mental health conversations, and working to better prepare patients and families. But as Simon explains, there's still a real gap between the need and what's currently available.
I think there are gaps, but I think there are moves to close those gaps slowly but surely. WFH and their psychosocial committee there are making huge strides in that area, and they are having regular meetings in all of the territories around the world to try and get people, healthcare professionals, thinking about the psychological implications of all the treatments, but of gene therapy in particular, and providing and how to provide support to people in that situation. So they're doing an awful lot at the moment.
It's one reason why groups like the WFH and EAHAD are working to create more spaces for these conversations so training providers can support mental health and help families feel ready for what's ahead. But like Simon shares, there's still more work to do to make that kind of support consistent everywhere.
EHAD in Europe are doing a fair bit with their psychosocial committee there as well. So there are moves to close that gap, but there are still gaps there, and I think that's where the nurses in the treatment centres are really important, basically, because, as I say, they have this psychologically aware care. They're aware of the psychological needs and are aware of what support is available in their area to support people going through and having problems if there are any.
So it's a powerful reminder that gene therapy, it isn't just about the treatment, but about how people experience it. And as the science moves forward, the support systems around it needs to keep pace. That's it for today's Global Check-In. And wow, we covered a lot. From regulatory harmonization to healthcare inequity to remembering who it is really about, the patient. Gene therapy lives in all of these contrasts. You can also find all of these wonderful resources mentioned in today's episode linked in the show notes below. Join us next time as we explore gene therapy in action, real-world success stories. So stay tuned, you don't want to miss it. Until then, it's your girl Hannah, signing off.